Hi, and welcome to my presentation for SCAR. I'm sorry that we will not be meeting each other in Hobart this year, but I'm still grateful that you're here to listen to my work. My name is Mia Momberg, and today I will be talking about how wind drives variation in plant communities. This work forms a part of my PhD thesis. It is well known that the changing climatic conditions are leading to changes in living communities. Further, these changes are predicted to continue. Yet predicting exactly how these future changes will affect communities remains a key challenge in ecology. Some of the previously observed changes show relatively consistent trends. For example, most species ranges are shifting upslope. But even to these, deviations and exceptions exist. Most studies concerning changes to climate strongly focus on measures related to temperature and precipitation. In order to improve the transferability and the accuracy of our models, it is important that we consider a wider range of climatic variables, particularly those that are mechanistically linked to plant performance, like wind. Particularly in the subantarctic and Antarctic, wind is an important element shaping the ecosystem. Wind structures natural systems, has physiological and mechanical impacts on plants, and affects vegetation patterns, such as the position of tree lines. One can distinguish between two types of wind: extreme winds, for example hurricanes and tornadoes, and chronic winds that blow on a regular basis. In particular, the effects of these chronic winds on biological communities is underexplored. Yet, global wind patterns are changing at a fast speed, emphasizing even more how important it is for us to gain an understanding of how wind affects communities. In 1959, Wilson already noted the shortcoming on wind-related research, and this gap remains today. Therefore, we aimed to determine the effect of chronic wind on plant communities by investigating its impact on species richness, vegetation cover, and species composition. This was studied at a fine scale to capture variation at the community level. This study was conducted on subantarctic Marion Island, which has a windy climate due to its position in the Roaring Forties. Marion Island is indicated on this map of wind speed by the red circle, and you can see that this area of the Southern Ocean experiences high wind speeds compared to the rest of the world. Data was collected on the northeastern side of Marion Island in 9 study grids, which each consisted of 160 quadrats, resulting in a total of 1,440 quadrats of 1 square meter in size each. Within each quadrat, the identity and the cover of all vascular plant species was recorded. Further, a wide range of abiotic variables were measured, including rock cover, soil depth, soil moisture, soil temperature, and pH. Drone imagery was obtained for each grid, which was then used to produce a high-resolution digital surface model for each grid. An estimate of wind speed for each grid was obtained from a computational fluid dynamics model, which has been created of wind flow over the island in collaboration with the engineering department. These two resources were then used to calculate a wind stress score for each quadrat. This was done by first getting a wind exposure index using Saga GIS and then multiplying this exposure value with wind speed for a resulting wind stress value. The minimum and maximum wind stress for each quadrat was then extracted. To determine the importance of wind as a driver of species richness and vegetation cover, 2 statistical approaches were used: generalized additive models and generalized linear models. For both approaches, 2 models were run, one with all other environmental variables but excluding wind, and a fuller model which included wind. Our next step in investigating the relationship between wind and species richness and vegetation cover will be to add spatially explicit models. The differences in species composition were then investigated using non-metric multidimensional scaling. For both the GAM and the GLM, the full model, which included wind variables, performed significantly better than the simple model, indicating that wind improves the predictability of the model. As further evidence that wind plays a significant role in determining species richness, the maximum wind stress was consistently one of the 5 most important predictive variables across the 2 statistical approaches. This suggests that areas that experience high wind stress are most important in determining species richness. Rock cover and pH also emerged as important drivers of richness. As for richness, vegetation cover also showed that the full model, including wind, performed significantly better than the simple model. Both the minimum and maximum wind stress were included in the top 5 most important predictors. Vegetation cover was also strongly influenced by rock cover and the potential direct incident radiation. Moving over to species composition, we again see wind emerging as one of the 5 most influential drivers. Winter soil temperature, rock cover, pH, and soil depth also played a large role in determining the species composition. Here we show that wind has an effect on 3 different plant community metrics: richness, cover, and composition, as evidenced by models that include wind variables performing significantly better than models without wind variables, and by wind metrics consistently being among the most important predictors in all models. Therefore, the changes being observed in wind patterns due to global climate change may affect the distribution of individual species and habitat types. Changing wind speeds, for example, will have large impacts on habitats characterized by salt spray. Even in systems which don't currently experience frequent wind, plants and animals may struggle to adapt to sudden changes in wind patterns. We expect that wind is an important driver in most ecosystems, and therefore that changes in wind speeds need to be considered explicitly when forecasting the impacts of climate change on living systems. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you were blown away by this topic and remember to think about wind. I would like to thank the SANA program of the National Research Foundation for funding this work. Please send through any questions you may have. Thank you.